If you need someone to earn back your vote and you're repulsed by what Trump said and did on January 6th, and you can't countenance how to vote for a candidate who multiple senior advisors have said is unfit for office, and he repeated that in the question. If he knows all of that, like, how are we still in this position where voters are undecided? Like, they know all these facts. Like, is it really going to be the case that if Trump came back and said, you know what, January 6th was bad, I should have stepped in sooner, that's on me? Would you take that at face value and be like, oh, well, then I'm going to forgive him for all of his other transgressions that I didn't like him for? I mean, that also seems a little disingenuous.
No, but would that have maybe won Mr. Gonzalez's vote?
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if Mr. Gonzalez was like, that's all I needed to hear. All I needed to hear was Trump be repentant or be sorry for what happened on January 6th. If only he would do that, I would give him my vote. That does seem to overlook an entirety of other, bad quality traits that you probably don't want in a president, like
probably
conflicts of interest. And so I was looking at that town hall and kind of wondering, yes, it was a good question. It was interesting. And maybe it was phrased because he was trying to get Trump to engage, and he was trying to make it collegial in some respects.
But Hugo, the other questions were also very effective. The gentleman who asked about who's going to do all of the work that these hard working immigrants do. If you want to mass deport all of the immigrants, who's going to do the work? And of course, Trump doesn't answer that question because we all know the answer is it's not going to be some of the Americans that are here, right? And so, I think people get a little bit squirrely about polls. You know how I am. I don't like polls, right? I think that they're like wonky. But here's the thing about polls. I think in this particular race too, I think there's a large swath of people that are Trump supporters and they just don't give a shit about what they're hearing about him, right? They are what they are. They
Correct.
may be a one-issue Trump supporter. It may be abortion. It may be the economy, whatever. Okay?
Or the border, or crime.
Yeah, whatever, the border. Yeah. And those are the group of people that just don't want to listen to reason. They don't want to hear it. It's like a la la la. They put their fingers in their ears and they're like, we either don't believe it, or he's inspired some emotional reaction in them that supersedes any type of reason, right? They're terrified that, illegal immigrants are coming across the border to murder their families, right? Something like that. Like, and even when you try to sit down and tell them that Kamala is not the border czar and that was never her position, and that actually immigration is better now under the Harris-Biden administration. Did I just say Harris-Biden? Biden-Harris administration. They don't listen to
Trump now. Yeah.
But then you have a swath of people, Hugo, on the other side that will support Kamala Harris, right? Because they believe in her and she actually has policies and plans. But I also think they're driven by a visceral dislike and hatred of Donald Trump. Whatever floats your boat, they exist. So the reason why I think there's some credibility in these polls that we're seeing these days is because it's that narrow down the middle group of people in those swing states or whatever that are making those decisions. I wouldn't call them the undecideds, to your point, which I think you're right. They're not per se true undecideds, right? They're not weighing two really normal institutional candidates, although I do think Kamala Harris is that. That's not what we have here, right? This is not a, may I say, don't, this is not gospel. This is not like a Nikki Haley, Kamala Harris race. This is not a John Kerry,
right.
John McCain, Kamala Harris race. I don't know. That's not what this is, right? So it is that really narrow margin of people, Hugo, that I think are they're looking for something to sing to them. They're waiting for their siren song. I don't know what they're waiting for because we're 18 days away from an election. And what are we, October 18th? How many more? What's the October surprise? You got 13 days left to have one? What is it?
I mean, I think increasingly people in DC and in politics say there's no such thing as an October surprise anymore because Trump weathers so many negative headlines all the time. It's like every week he has a new surprise that he has to grapple with and see if he can distance himself from.
Yeah, but how crazy is that? But how nuts is that? That
And that has
we're
been
so numb and
normalized.
immune to it, that this is the norm, that you hear some crazy shit that he says, and we're all like, oh, look, crazy uncle got out of the asylum. Let's put his diapers back on and lock him back up. I mean, that's just horrific that that's the way that we're looking at things.
And just to bring this full circle, then, when we're thinking about like why people support Trump, with respect to the billionaire donor class, people like Elon, people like Bill Ackman, people like Nelson Peltz.
Or those are the three guys, right, that have given the most money, right, to the PAC or whatever.
Not even. I mean, Miriam Adelson's given the most joint with Elon, but I'm just talking about like billionaires in general. People, people who otherwise be Democrats, were it not for things like tax policy. Trump is now saying he wants SALT to come back, even though that was one thing he negotiated out of his quote unquote historic tax deal, which he passed which Congress passed when he was in office. So there is obviously a play to that type of voter as well, but it is increasingly nebulous to me how these big money donors, people like Peltz, Musk, Bill Ackman, are willing to forego all of Trump's other bad character traits because clearly they see an upside for them financially, either because they think, if he does more deregulation, if he allows, if he has policies that might increase the S&P, or has policies that might reduce their tax burden, they would be up for that. And it seems to me that people are increasingly being driven by single issue items, and they're willing to forego everything else so long as they get that.
But I would put the intelligence and the empathy and the decency of a Mark Cuban, I would pit that against that whole group that you just mentioned that are Trump supporters any day.